This is not an American president. An American president is somebody who has reverence for the American experiment, who has reverence for the Constitution, who has reverence for the process and for the American people. Donald Trump had made it clear that he wouldn't have accepted the results of the election had he not won. He had made it very clear that he had more reverence for the Russian leader than for the previous American president. This is not a man who respected the Constitution, that respected the American people unless they voted for him. We knew what was coming. Now, the fact that a majority of Americans saw what he did in office, saw the million bodies on the ground from COVID, saw the economic destruction of mismanaging the pandemic, saw the venality of his personal behavior, and put him back in the White House on the promise of destructive tariffs, which he said he was going to do, on the promise of Project 2025 being implemented, which will destroy the American presidency and the checks and balances inherent in the Constitution, and put him back in there knowing what he was? Holy hell! The destruction of the East Wing is a metaphor for what this man, this venal character, is promised to do to the American experiment and is doing to it. I am horrified.
One of the things that I've talked to people about in recent weeks, and you brought up our friend Nicole Wallace. I think everybody forgets over the 10 years is that you and I have differences on policy and positions and everything, but I can share a very similar view about decency, about right and wrong, about kindness, about humanity. When Donald Trump came down the escalator, we all had the same position on Trump. Didn't matter if you were Republican or Democrat. There were no Republicans, zero, outside of the people that were over at Trump Tower who were for Donald Trump. And so 10 years later, you look at the line that everyone you had ever worked with stood on. And I'm like, wow, you got Nicole Wallace, you got Adam Kitzinger, maybe 10 of us. And then I watch a Barry Weiss as she's taking off at CBS says, well, what we got to do here is we got to get Scott Jennings over here. A guy who has no integrity, no credibility, not because he believes something that I don't believe, but because he lies all the time.
That's right.
Non-stop. He's going to go over to Edward R. Murrow's network. And so if you're a Republican and you hold the position that Nicole and I had, it's, you talk a lot about that in therapy, I suppose, why everyone you ever knew. But how do you think about the collapse of integrity that the people who held the line against us are now routinely labeled as crazy, and the people who capitulated to it are flush with opportunity because I guess lying pays? How do you sort that out?
Yeah, because look, it is not just you and Nicole who hold a very understandable and long running conservative position that the Republican Party has held since, like I said, I've told you this before. My father he was not a U.S. citizen, but he was a whole Reaganite. Okay, he was an entire Reaganite, and my mother was a whole Carter Democrat. That's why their marriage didn't work out. They were very opposite. But I have understood what Republicans believe my whole life. And among the people who had the view you have about Donald Trump, among the people who had the view Nicole had about Donald Trump, were Marco Rubio, who I covered for a 14-year journalistic career in Florida. I know he had that view. Ted Cruz, who ran to the end, into the convention to try to stop Donald Trump from being president. He had that view as well. John Thune has that position as well. Tucker Carlson said he hates Donald Trump. What was it? Viscerally, passionately. He has that view. I believe Megyn Kelly has that view. Off the record, all of these Republicans who are like Scott Jennings wrote a whole op-ed, which you can still find in the archives after January 6th, excoriating Donald Trump for trying to foment a coup against the American. They all have that view. I promise you, the vast majority of Republicans in the United States Senate have that view. I don't know about Mike Johnson, because Mike Johnson is a Christian nationalist, and so I don't know what view he has. He was key to trying to overthrow the election. The majority of Republicans, off the record, you know it and I know it because they probably do it for you more, but they've even done it with me, off the record, despise Donald Trump. They do not believe Donald Trump has an ounce of integrity. They hate and loathe Donald Trump, but they are either cowards or opportunists in this moment. And this happened in Weimar, Germany. This happened in Germany. People have to make a decision. Do you fight the autocrat or do you take the knee? Do you bend the knee to the autocrat? And bending the knee is lucrative. You can get what Scott Jennings is getting, which is corporate pats on the head, pats on the back, opportunity. He wants to run for office. He is a coward or an opportunist or both. He knows that he does not agree with this, but he will say on CNN to camera that he does and that he's for it. He said the other day on CNN that he's against the idea of Donald Trump taking a third term. But I promise you, if Steve Bannon and friends somehow come up with some sort of scheme for Trump to take a third term, Scott Jennings will say to camera that he's for it because that's in his financial interest. These people are doing literally what the German elite did in the 1930s with Adolf Hitler. They're doing the exact same thing out of some combination of fear and cowardice.
Does this surprise you?
Fear and opportunism.
Does this surprise you, the extent of the capitulation?
No. And the corporate capitulation, not at all. Not at all. These corporations have decided that they don't want to be at war with Brendan Carr, the media companies. They're like, we don't want to fight with Brendan Carr. We will do whatever it is we think that Carr and Trump want so that we can get our mergers and acquisitions to go through. These billionaires are saying, yeah, it's humiliating to sit around the Oval, to sit around in the West Wing of the White House and glaze Donald Trump and behave like $2 hookers, praising Donald Trump for breathing and being alive. And yeah, we're billionaires. We shouldn't have to belittle ourselves that way. But you know what? Crawling on the floor on our bellies for a few minutes is worth it because we get to do our mergers and acquisitions. These people are amoral. And so, no, it doesn't surprise me at all. People have decided that capitulating to Trump is in their financial interest and they're going to do it. Jeff Bezos is a freaking billionaire. You don't have to bow to Trump, but he's going to do it because he's like, why should I fight with the administration when I can get my way? And, the Ellisons are like, yeah, we're billionaires, but so what? We can kiss Donald Trump's ass in order to get our way. But they're also, I believe, I don't think they're all doing stuff they don't believe in. I think a lot of them actually do believe in what Donald Trump believes in. I think a lot of them low key actually are crypto fascist. A lot of these billionaires actually believe in this shit. And so they're getting what they want anyway. The diversity stuff they did in the past was bullshit. They did it because they felt they had to, because George Floyd was murdered. So they did it reluctantly and now they can undo it.
I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning. I invite you to join this community where I promise to be honest, blunt, and direct about what is happening in this country. America is in crisis. Follow and subscribe to this channel and on Substack. Thank you.